If you're building an AI receptionist, you probably realize how overwhelming it can get. You have Vapi, Make, calendars, prompts, integrations. It's a lot. In this video, I'm going to guide you on the exact architecture I'd use in 2026 to build a real working AI receptionist for a home service business. Not theory, not a slide deck, an actual build, and we'll go step by step on how the AI thinks, how it connects to tools, how it checks availability, and how you can use this to help real businesses today. If you're new to building AI receptionists, this will give you clarity. If you're already building, this will simplify your stack. Let's get started. Okay, so it's 2026 and you want to learn how to build an AI receptionist for a home service-based business. In today's video, you'll learn how to build a voice AI agent on Vapi. You'll learn how to build automations on make.com, how to connect those tools to the AI agent on Vapi, and how to integrate with Google Calendar for bookings. And the technology that we'll use for this build will be using Vapi, we'll use Make for the automation, and we'll use Google Calendar along with Gmail. Now, the responsibilities of the agent. So the AI will be able to handle basic Q&A. It will be able to reference for the current date and time for after hours and booking tasks. It will be able to reference a calendar for availability. It will be able to book, reschedule, and cancel events, along with sending email confirmations. It will be able to log leads and emergency calls and outcomes to a Google Sheet. And then lastly, we'll set up the functionality to transfer to a human agent when required. Now, I also have a oversimplified design of how the whole system is going to work. So to walk you through it, we have the user, right? Essentially, the user is going to be making requests to the AI on Vapi. And then the AI agent on Vapi will have a set of tools that allows the AI to perform actions. So the Vapi, or not the Vapi, but the AI assistant will make tool calls to our Make backend where all of our automations will live. So we'll set up a scenario where we can perform specific functions such as returning the date and time back to the AI, checking the calendar for availabilities, booking, rescheduling, canceling, sending email confirmations, and logging new and emergency leads to a Google Sheet. Now, once these actions are done, it returns a tool call response back to Vapi where it relays the information back to the user. So for example, when someone's interacting with the AI, the assistant will first make a tool call to get the current date and time so it understands the time that we're working with. So it can accurately book and also determine if it's after hours or not. Let's say if a user wants to check to see if there's any openings for tomorrow in the afternoon. Okay, well, Vapi will make a tool call where it will check the calendar and return if it's busy or open, and it will return that information back, and Vapi can let the user know we don't have any available time slots or we do, right? So you can kind of see what's going on here. User makes a request. The AI agent uses its set of tools to trigger to our backend, which is Make, so that it can perform actions, check the calendar, book them in, reschedule, send out a confirmation for their booking, or log an emergency call that comes in after hours, right? So this is kind of the flow that happens. Starts with the user, makes a request, Vapi calls the correct tool, the Make automation returns the tool response back, and then it returns that back to the user. And then also the functionality to transfer it to a live human. We'll set that up later in the build. So just wanted to quickly walk you through that. Now the next step is to just go over the whole design, the prompt design, so that we can get a well-written or view of a well-written documentation that will just speed up our development. Let's jump over to the prompt. All right, so first let's take a look at the prompt because this is going to be pretty much the most important part of the whole build. You'll see that this prompt acts as a documentation or a spec sheet for the whole AI agent build. Now, it's going to cover the system prompt to handle and escalate emergency situations, how to check the calendar, the booking flow, and all that. We'll walk through it so that you can have a better idea of how this prompt is structured. But first things first is the required tools. So as I mentioned in the previous breakdown, we're going to be working with these core tools. So we have the check calendar, book appointment, reschedule appointment, cancel appointment, logging leads to the Google Sheet, the get date time tool, transfer call functionality, and also log emergency. Now, this is where the meat and potatoes are. So this is where the prompt actually starts. So this is right here is the mission, the overall task of the AI assistant, and it's just to qualify inbound callers, assess urgency if it's an emergency, if not, and if so, like how does it escalate that? Schedule appointments using the tools, transfer to a live agent when necessary, handling after-hour calls, and also confirming details before proceeding with booking, rescheduling, or canceling. Right? So here we have the voice and tone defined. And one thing that I really want to pay close attention to is these sections right here. So numbers. So with AI, pronouncing numbers can get a little finicky. Now, that is greatly determined on the LLM that you're using and also the voice that you're using, right? So keep that in mind. But I do like to add this section in just for extra guardrails on how it should work with phone numbers, pronouncing zip codes, street addresses, apartments or suite numbers, specifically time, right? And then also how to handle dates in large numbers. This is just an extra guardrail so that we provide a good user experience whenever the AI agent is communicating with numbers. Very important. Yep. And then also year context. AI can hallucinate and think that it's in 2023 or 2024. We just want to make sure that we have a section where we're providing context to the AI that is 2026, right? And how it should use the get date time tool to have better context of the time. Now, this section right here is really important. Now, based off of doing over 30 plus consultation calls with people learning this stuff, this is a section that a lot of people get confused with. And I think it's just because we need to think in steps. So I want to break this down one by one so that you can have a good understanding of the logic, the flow on how we're using these check calendar tools, book appointment tools. It's just going to empower you as a developer to start thinking in steps because that's essentially how we have to break this down to AI. So let's go over it. So when we're in the check calendar and booking flow, the very first step is to silently invoke the get date time tool, wait for response, never invent dates, and always use the tool response. The reason why we have this here is because, as I mentioned before, when someone's interacting with the AI and they say tomorrow, the AI could output something like 2023 in October. Now, that is going to lead to just inaccurate bookings and a headache. So we want to include it in the step, clearly instruct it that before you move forward with any type of booking, you're going to look at your digital watch, which is the get date time tool, and only move forward once you understand what time it is so it can accurately communicate back and forth with the date and the time. This is going to be a very critical step. Okay. And then what we're going to transition to is ask the user the day they'd like the technician to come by, morning or afternoon. So when a user says that they want to book an appointment, perfect. The AI is going to look at its watch. It's going to see like, okay, today is February 26 or March or whenever you're watching this or whenever the AI is engaged with the user. Once it understands the time and it's going to move forward, it's going to ask, when would you like the technician to come by? The morning or afternoons? What works best for you? Okay. So for instance, they're going to say like tomorrow in the afternoon or tomorrow in the morning. Perfect. Now we can take that time and then we will invoke the check calendar tool and wait for the response. Now this is going to go to our Make backend and then we're going to return all the open slots near the user's preferred time. Once we get back that response, okay, it's going to provide 3 options near the user's preferred time, okay? And then I also have an example of how it's going to handle that. So we have 3 open slots tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m., 3 p.m., or 3:30 p.m. What works best for you? Okay, so that is pretty much the check calendar flow. I wanted to break it down because essentially it's the steps on how we're going to have this AI effectively use the tools when it needs to. Okay. Now, once the user has confirmed that, for instance, 3 p.m. works, and then we're going to transition to collecting the information to finalize the booking, which is this section here. So collect the following before using the booking tool. So first thing is the full name and have the caller spell it out. This is going to be very critical, especially when we're querying like the bookings by their name. A typo can throw the whole thing off. So we want to make sure that we're collecting the right name by having the user spell it out to reduce any issues with automation, reduce any typos. Okay, this is going to be very important that we are ensuring that we're validating, confirming the inputs, such as in this situation, the full name. Okay, and then we're going to collect the callback number, the customer's email, same thing. We're going to have the user spell it out so that we can reduce issues. And then the full service address and zip, description of use, service type, is it repair, maintenance, install, emergency, or consultation? Are they a new or existing customer? Okay, and then after collecting the required information, invoke the book appointment tool, wait for a response. If successful, inform the user that they have been booked in and they will receive an email confirmation shortly. Okay, so that is going to be the check calendar and booking flow and the data points that we need to collect in order to work with our tools, which is going to be the check calendar and also the book appointment tool. Now, the reschedule flow, same thing. We want to collect key data points, which is going to be the day and time they would like to reschedule in for. We're going to ask them morning or afternoon, and then we're going to invoke the check calendar tool and wait for a response to ensure that the time that they want to reschedule for is actually available. So that's the first step. We want to make sure that the time that they're requesting is indeed available. Okay. Once we get the tool response back, we're going to provide, again, 3 open slots near the user's preferred time if the time that they requested for is not available. So, for example, we have 3 open slots tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m., 3 p.m., or 3:30 p.m. What time works best for you? Similar to the last step. Yep. And then once the user has selected an available time slot, we're going to collect the user's first name, last name, and have them spell it out again so that we reduce any errors collecting wrong information from the user. Okay, and we're also going to collect the user's original appointment date and time, and then we're going to invoke the reschedule appointment tool, wait for response, and if successful, we're going to inform them that their appointment has been rescheduled, and they'll receive an email confirmation. Cancel flow is going to be a lot easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to collect the user's first name and last name, have them spell out again, collect the user's original appointment date and time, and then we're going to invoke the cancel appointment tool, wait for a response, and then we're going to let them know that their appointment has been canceled. Okay, so this right here is pretty much the main flow, right, for booking, rescheduling, and canceling. It's going to be very important to understand how this works so that we can get the agent to work efficiently. Now, let's just quickly go over the emergency and stuff like that. Okay, so life-threatening, gas smell, electrical, water hazard, all this stuff, it's going to assess if it's emergency or if it's like more of a standard situation. If it's an emergency, and then it's going to log using the log emergency tool. And then, you can also set up other automations to alert the team that there's been an emergency call so they can handle accordingly. We also have a section for after hours logic, and then transfer conditions, and then also some common responses. And yeah, now another thing that I really want to focus on, because this can also get really confusing, is how do we actually use the tools, and what are the data points that we use in order to make this whole thing work? Okay, so the very first tool that we're going to be working with, as I mentioned before, is going to be the get date time. Now, we're not going to need to pass any parameters, for that, because we're just going to, it's just looking at the watch and it's going to get back the date and the time. Okay, but the first tool that's very crucial is going to be the check calendar tool. The only data point that we need is the preferred date. So for instance, a user says, I need to book an appointment, and they say tomorrow at 10 a.m., right? We're going to store that date in this value here. Now, I know this format looks really funky, but this is the way the computers understand date and time, which is in ISO 8601 date string format. So just know when we work with dates, we can't just put like February 15th or stuff like that. It needs to be formatted in this way for everything to work smoothly. So this is the only parameter that we're using for this tool. Now, the next tool is going to be the book appointment. So the user has confirmed 10 a.m. tomorrow works for them. We're going to collect the key information to make this tool work. So service type, customer email, customer phone, is new customer, service address, and you can see the rest of these data points that we're going to be working with to trigger the tool successfully. Okay, so this essentially is the payload. This is the data that's going to be sent to our backend on Make, where we will use these data points to make the booking. And then we have reschedule appointment, same thing. This is the payload. The parameters or the data points we're going to be working with is the appointment date and time. This is their original appointment date. The rescheduled date and time, this is the date that they want to reschedule for. Customer last name, customer first name. Okay. And then also we have cancel appointment. We're working with the appointment date, customer last name, customer first name, and then we have log lead. We have these data points, and then we have log emergency. We have these data points here. Now, that's pretty much the breakdown of the prompt, right? With us giving this clear detail of the tools, the parameters that the tools are using, when it should call the tools, how it should handle numbers, how it should handle emergency situations, after hours. All of this is just documentation that we're going to bring over to Vapi and just speed up our whole build. So let's do that now. Let's jump over to Vapi and finally start building out the AI agent on there. If you're new to this platform, it's a platform that allows developers to build and ship conversational AI agents fairly quickly and easily. If you don't have an account, I have a link down below in the description that you can sign up with and start building this today. If you already have an account, perfect, log in and we'll get started on our build. All right, so now I'm in Vapi's new feature, which is the Composer, which is honestly game changing. So now what we can do is we can build conversational AI agents via chat with Vapi's AI agent. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to provide that whole documentation that we just previously broke down and provide that as the spec sheet for the whole build. So we're going to provide it the system prompt, the tools, the parameters, everything to create this whole AI agent really quickly. So let's go ahead and kick this off. Before I hit submit, what I did was I added in your task is to build Sarah, a voice AI agent for good looking plumbing. I will provide you the full spec for the build that will include the system prompt, the tools, and tool parameters. I'll provide you the webhook later on in our build, which is a webhook for Make. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And then I paste it in the prompt that we broke down in the previous step. Hey guys, wanted to quickly pop on. So for this build, the prompt is going to be everything. If you want the exact prompt that I use so that you can plug and play and build along with me, I have a link down below in the description where you can grab that prompt along with the other build resources. And if you're new to building these type of AI automations and you're struggling and you're having a lot of issues and bugs and errors, feel free to use the link down below to book a consultation with my team and we'll help you get up and running in no time. With that said, let's jump right back in. All right, so I'm going to kick off this build. All right, so let's see what it's saying. Before I start the build, I need to clarify one critical inconsistency. Okay, it says that it's serving Phoenix, but also says San Diego. So we're going to put it as operating out of Phoenix. Okay, because I need two more things before I generate the finalized production build. What's Good Looking Plumbing's business of operation. So yeah, I'm just gonna take it from right here. Just put this down below. And then what is your after hour emergency response time? I'm gonna say within 1 hour. Then go ahead and send this. And before I generate the full production ready configuration, system prompt, structure tool schemas, I need one final clarification. Do you want Sarah to automatically attempt booking first and only transfer if tool fails, or offer transfer early in the call as an option? I'm going to go with number one, because we don't want to just try to transfer immediately, only if really necessary. So it's taking all those components of the prompts that we broke down, and it's just creating a finalized version of the prompt to start off the build. Just structuring all the tools that we have broken down. Okay, I'm just going to say yes. Okay, so it built the assistant. We can see it successfully made a post. So it created it on the back end of Vapi. So we have the assistant created now. It tried to add a phone number to it, but it failed. But we don't want to do that part yet. So that's perfectly fine. Okay, so let's just go ahead and check to see that it actually added in the assistant. Not seeing. Not seeing the assistant in my tab. The voice I want to use is going to be Vappy. Let's use Emma. Okay, perfect. Now we have it. Okay, but this prompt is not accurate. I'm going to replace this with the prompt. Perfect. Okay. But what I want to do is change the LLM. So let's use 4.1. What I do suggest is that you explore around with the different LLMs to see how they work. Try Grok, try um, all these different LLMs so that you can just compare how each LLM model works in the conversational aspect. But I find from experience the best LLM to use is going to be the GPT 4.1. Why? Is because it's really accurate when it comes to function calling. If you try to use other LLMs, you'll realize that it doesn't call the tool. Sometimes it ignores steps, but GPT 4.1 does really well. And this would be the recommended LLM for production conversational AI. So that just keep that in mind. All right, so latency is kind of high. Ideally, we want to keep this low, like around 800 milliseconds, but I think the sacrifice is worth it because we want an LLM that we can trust and that is reliable, that it's going to call the tools when required, right? So we have assistant speaks first. So when someone calls, the AI Sarah will say this intro message, and then we have the prompt that we broke down. Okay. And then now let's just verify that the voice is indeed the one that we want. So now the best options are going to be 11 Labs and Vapi, but from my experience, I find that Vapi's voice sound really well, and they also say numbers really good. So I like to use Emma. Okay. And then the next thing I want to inspect is the tools. Let's see if it actually created the tools. Okay, so I'm looking at the tools now. I know it looks like a mess. I have a lot of tools that I'm working with, but the tools that we ideally broke down is going to be the log lead, cancel appointments, reschedule appointments, book appointments, check availability, get date time. The only tool I don't see is log emergency. So I'm going to go back to the composer and I'm going to get this added in. Okay. So log emergency is going to be this right here. So we created the tool. Let's go back and make sure. Okay, so we see it right here. So now we have all the tools. But now let's just go through it one by one to make sure that the tool is properly set up with the parameters that we broke down. Okay, so the very first tool is going to be the get date time. Perfect, no parameters. It's essentially just going to trigger the tool and it's going to get back the date and time. Okay, and let's also just take out this webhook URL because we're going to swap it with a new webhook URL when we start building out the make scenario. The next one is going to be check availability. So here we have preferred date and time, perfect. And then let's just delete this because we're going to swap that out later on. And then let's just make sure in here. Yes, so we want the description to include that it needs to be an ISO 8601 so it doesn't pass any funky dates, because if it passed the date in the wrong format, it could break the whole automation. So just ensure that you have this description here. And then book appointment. Okay, so the book appointment is not fully set up. So same thing, I'm gonna go back to the composer and have it build out the tool. So I'm gonna go back to my prompt. Please update the book tool with this spec. Failed. Let's see. Try to do this. Okay, so it built the tool. Let's go ahead and check on that. So we have book appointment. Now, I'm not sure if it created a new tool or if it updated the current one, but here we have this. Let's try to refresh this. So we're looking for a book appointment. So here. So it created the new tool. Perfect. So we don't need this one anymore. So let's just delete this. And then let's verify that it did reschedule right. No, it didn't. So it looks like it just didn't do the tools correctly. So let's go back to Composer and just have it add in all these tools because we need this correct. So delete this. Check availability is good. Get date time is good. So we need, let's see, this one needs to be redone. And let's see if log emergency is correct. So log emergency is correct. So we need to just rebuild the reschedule appointment tool, the cancel appointment tool, log lead, and I believe those are the tools that we need to rebuild. So let's go ahead and do that. So we need reschedule, cancel, and log lead. Okay, so the tools have been built. Let's go back in. So we have log lead, cancel appointment, reschedule appointment, book appointment, log emergency. We also have check availability and get date time. Perfect. Now let's just double check again that we have it correct. So we know get date time is good, check availability is good. We know book appointment's good. Reschedule appointment, yes. Cancel appointment, yep, that's correct. And log lead, yes, this is correct. But let's make sure that this is set to required. And just ensure that all your parameters that we're working with the tools are set to required so we don't miss anything. Perfect. Okay, so one last thing I want to do is go back to the Assistance tab. Okay, and let's set temperature to 0. Now, the temperature is, do we want the AI, the LLM, to be more predictable, or do we want it to be a little bit more creative? I realize if we keep it low, it tends to be more predictable. It follows the script as it should. And it doesn't get too creative because sometimes it can start to ramble, and we don't want that. We want it short and concise. But it looks like I made a mistake. I didn't actually save it. So let me re-add the prompt in. Okay, and then let's switch it back to 4.1. Temperature to 0. Voice configuration, we want Emma. Perfect. Now let's hit publish. We can skip and publish. All right, so we're all set. So we set up our Vapi assistant using Composer. We have our system prompt. We have the GPT 4.1 model selected. We also have our voice set to Vapi as the provider, and we chose Emma's voice. And then we also have our tools. So we have the get date time, check availability, and all the tools that we already talked about. We already validated and checked to make sure all the parameters are there, right? Let's also make sure that our tools are actually connected to our assistant. So we don't have any of the tools. So let's go ahead and click all the tools that we created. So we have log lead, cancel appointment, reschedule appointment, book appointment, log emergency. And then we also need get date time and check availability. Now, the last tool that we didn't set up yet, but we'll set that up later on, is going to be the transfer call tool. But we can use Vapi's native tool, and it's really easy to get set up with that. Okay, so let's just publish so we have everything. Skip and publish. All right, perfect. Now, the next step is for us to start setting up our backend on Make and then connect the webhook URL that we'll get with Make onto Vapi, which will be the bridge on how Vapi will communicate back and forth across the platforms. So let's jump into Make and finally start building out the automation where we actually define and set up the actions for the AI to do things outside the Vapi platform. Okay, let's get started on building our automations workflow. So right now I'm on Make. If you don't have an account, again, you can sign up using a link down below that I have in the description. If you have an account, perfect. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up a webhook. Now, what is a webhook? A webhook is uh, it's a think of something that sits there and waits for any request that gets sent to it, right? Now, the way it works is you're given a webhook URL and you can send structured data across different payloads to this specific URL. So we're going to click on custom webhook. So whenever it receives any type of data to this specific webhook URL, it will trigger the automation. This is the bridge between Vapi and the automation here on Make. Okay, so I'm going to add a new webhook. So I'm going to call this Sarah Tooling webhook. Hit save, and then we're going to be given this webhook URL. Okay, so let's go ahead and just add the webhook URL to all the tools. So we have log lead. Just ensure that you save it. So cancel appointment, reschedule appointment. Oops, let that save first. Okay. And then book appointment. Okay, that's good. And then log emergency. And then I believe there's get date time and check calendar, check availability. Okay, so get date time. And also check availability. Okay, so now whenever this tool is called, it will trigger and send all the data to this webhook URL and it will kick off the automation. So let's hit save. Now the next step is to organize all the parameters, the data points that we're going to be getting from the payload. So Vapi is going to send over JSON and we're going to have values that we need to keep our whole automation clean. We're going to set multiple variables. Okay, so let's just save this. So essentially what we're doing is we're going to get data sent to this webhook. We're going to extract all the data points that we need, such as the preferred date time, the customer first name, customer last name, all those data points that we've been discussing for the build. We're going to extract that and store them in neat variables so that we can cleanly access all these data points through the rest of our automation. But before I do that, let's just go ahead and set up the pathways for the different tools that we're going to be building out. So we're going to click on this and let's add a flow control and we're going to have a router. This is going to assist us in routing to when the get date time tool gets called, the check availability tool gets called. It's going to route to the correct scenario path. Okay. So I'm going to add in 7. Okay. And let's just start naming these paths. So the very first path, again, I like to keep it as organized as possible, creating these tools in orders that they're going to be called. So the very first tool that the AI needs to call is the get date time. So I'm going to label this the get date time. I'm going to save this. And then now this one is going to be the check availability tool. So check availability. Perfect. Okay. Let's hit save. This one's going to be book appointment. Now, if you notice the way I'm labeling this, now it's not necessary, but I like to just stay consistent in the way I build my systems, and I like to use camel case. So it's when the first letter the first character in the word is not capitalized, it's lowercase. And then the second word, the first letter is capitalized. I just like to keep it consistent. And yeah, so I'm going to hit save. This one's going to be reschedule appointment. This one's going to be cancel appointment. Then we have lastly, we have log emergency. Okay. And then let's just save this. Always ensure that you hit this icon right here. It's very easy to lose work on Make and Vapi, as you saw previously. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to start sending over some data to this webhook URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly chat with the AI so that we can start sending over some data. Now, what I'm going to do is, and what I recommend you to do is you're going to right click, run this module only, and then go ahead and chat with your assistant. We want it to trigger a tool so we can send over some data to this webhook. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I just briefly chatted with my assistant just so I can get some data sent to my webhook URL. Now let's go into it and see what we received. So here, if we look in, we got a bundle. Okay, so this is going to be the payload. This is the data that Vapi sent over. So if we go into tool calls, go into function, we can see we called the tool get date time. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want the AI to do, which is to look at its watch. Okay. If we go into arguments, we shouldn't have anything because the only thing it needs to do is just trigger the tool and get the the date and time. Why? Okay. So what we're gonna do is we want to set up the filtering so that we can hit this path. So the way we're going to go about it is we're going to check to see if a condition exists, and we're going to set up the filter that way. So what we need to do is enter tool calls in the function. If this right here, if this value is get date time, and I'm just going to put it right here. If it's get date time, meaning if a tool comes in and the name of that tool is get date time, we're going to go down this path. Okay. So that's how we're going to route to the correct automation or part of the automation, depending on what tool is being called. So let's save that. And we're going to add in, we're going to go to tools and we're going to set a variable. So this one right here. And this one's going to be just date, or let's make it a little more accurate though. So it's current date. Yep. And then here we're going to use a format date. Now the format date takes in, it's two parameters. So the first input is going to be the current date. So we're going to use the now function. And then the output is how we want to actually format that date. So you can look at this right here. It kind of gives you an example of how to set it up, but we're going to do capital MM / DD / YYYY. And then we'll do it lowercase HH :MM What this is going to look like is this format right here. So it'll have the month, the day, and the year. And then the lowercase HHMM and the capital A is what's going to give this format right here. Okay, so now we're going to hit save. Now we need a webhook response back to Vapi. So we're going to use webhook response. In the body, this needs to be structured JSON. And the way it's going to look like is this. And I'll add this in the resource in the link below so that you can just copy and paste this. It'll help you just speed up the whole process. So here we have an object, and this is a results. repeat. So we need to use double quotes. We need to use a colon, and then this is an array. So array are square brackets. And then we do need another opening and closing object. Just trying to clean this up a little bit. Okay, and we have two properties in this object. We have the tool call ID. This is how we're going to be able to reference the specific tool that was called. And we're going to just put in an empty string for now. We're going to add a comma, and then this is going to be result, but also needs the double quotes around it. Okay, and we can do an empty string for now as well. Now, what we're going to put into result is the current date time value that we just set up in the previous step. Then I'm also just going to append today, date and time is, add a colon. Yep. And then right here, we're going to map in the tool call ID. So we click on inside the double quotes, we're going to go to tool calls, and we're going to click on the ID. Now this is going to be dynamic, so every time it calls a tool, it's going to have its own tool call ID, and that's how we're going to reference that that specific response back to the AI. Okay, so now that path is set. Now the next step is setting up the check availability flow. But if you recall, we are working with a property, which is going to be the preferred date and time. So now we're going to need to start mapping in all the variables that we're going to need for this whole flow to work. So let's start doing that. Okay, to make this as easy as possible so that we can just map in all the variable values in, I like to use Postman. So the way I got it set up, I have a split screen. I have Postman on my left, I have Make on my right. Now, Postman is an API testing tool. Essentially, it allows us to send data across different APIs or to different APIs so that we can test automations, test endpoints, and stuff like that. It just helps speed up the whole development and testing process when it comes to the data that we're going to be working with. Now, if we don't use Postman, it's not required, but if we don't use Postman, and then we would need to call up the AI every single time for it to trigger every single tool, and that's just going to use up credits and take up a lot more time. So it's best just to get familiar with a tool such as this. So the way we're going to use it is, again, if you're not understanding what we need to do, we have different variables that we need to work with, different parameters such as customer first name, customer last name, is new customer. All those data points, we need to store them cleanly in variables so that we can use them throughout our automation. That's what we're doing. Okay. So to do this, so right here, I still have that scenario run where I sent over the data for the get date time. So it's going to be important that we use the data that we got from that. We're going to click on this icon right here, and we're going to go to download output bundles. So this is the whole payload that got sent from Vapi to Make. We're going to use this, we're going to modify it, and then map in all our variables through using Postman. So when we're looking at this, we're going to scroll all the way down, and we're going to go to the closing bracket, not the square bracket, but the curly brace. We're going to drag this all the way up to the top, and then go to this opening curly brace. Let's copy this, and let's go into Postman. Okay, let me just delete this because we don't need that. And there we go. So we have this whole payload in here. Now, if we look, the tool is get date and time, and in here we have no arguments. This is where we're going to pass in arguments, and the data that we're going to pass in is going to be this. So this right here are all the parameters that we need to pass. So we need preferred dates, service type, customer email, customer phone, is new customer, service address, appointment date, customer first name, customer last name, problem description, reschedule date, phone, urgency, address, disposition, customer type, and lead temperature. These are going to be all the parameters that we need for all the tools. Okay, so let's go back to the make side, and let's just grab the webhook URL. Okay, and then on make, we want to right click or first let me just hit save. But we want to right click, run this module only this one, okay? And then we want to send the data over. Okay, so we got it right here. Let's go into message. We're going to go into tool calls. We know the function is get date time. And then we're passed in all the arguments. So now we just need to map these. So we're going to create variables for each of these values. Okay, here I have all the variables created. So preferred date, service type, customer email, customer phone. All these are variables that are here. Okay, now what we have to do is map in each value to the correct variable. So in this payload, so if we click right here and I go into tool calls, function, arguments, now I can take in, map in preferred date, map this one to service type, customer email. Hopefully you get the point. Just go ahead and match all these to the correct variable. All right, so now we have all the variables correctly mapped to the correct values. Be sure to hit save and then also save down below so you see that green circle. Okay, perfect. Now let's move down the line and continue with the rest of the automation. So let me just make this the big screen now. So the next part is for us to configure this check availability path. So the way we're going to connect this whole thing is we're going to use Google Calendar. Okay, and the module that we want is search events. Now, the logic of how we're going to do this is a user is going to give us a preferred date and time. Okay, so for instance, someone says, hey, I want an appointment for tomorrow in the morning. We're going to take that date and time and we're going to look for the next few days. So we're going to look for the next 2 days and we're going to see the busy slots, and then we're going to use an AI GPT completion module so that we can see the open slots around the busy slots, and we'll let the user know like, hey, we have availability at that time, or we have availability at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., or 11:30 a.m., what works best for you. So we're going to use the Google Calendar search events module. So I'm going to click on my Good Looking Plumbing. So you're going to want to go to your Google Calendar, go to your settings tabs, create a separate calendar for testing purposes and for us to build this whole thing. Okay, so I set mine to Good Looking Plumbing. Start date is going to be preferred date time, and then end date is going to be, we're going to use a format date, or I'm sorry, not format date, but we're going to add days. The input is going to be the preferred date, and we want to look for the next 2 days. So we're going to look at the next events over the next 2 days and figure out, calculate what are the open slots around those busy slots. We're going to change this to single events, yes. And then we're going to order by start time ascending, and then we can just leave it like that. Now let's hit save, and let's also save the whole scenario. Now the next thing we want is we want to use a tool. So we're going to set a variable or set multiple variables. So the two variables that we need to find is a start. Let's add another item, and this one's going to be the end. Let's save this, and then let's click on this. Let's run this module only. Now let's feed in a date. Now the date needs to be in ISO 8601 string format. So enter in your date like this, So we'll do 02. Let's do 27th T. So we're going to look at 2/27th, which is Friday at 10 a.m. And this is just the time zone for MST. So I'm going to hit OK. And we're given 0 bundles. So I'm going to go back into here and I'm going to use these two values. Okay, so I'm going to click on this date. I'm going to format date as the inputs. I'm going to add in the start. And then the way the format needs to be is YYY dash MM dash DD T oops SS. Okay, so ensure that you have the variable value set to format date, and then we have the start value, and we have the date formatted like this. Now, the reason why we need to do this is because, again, the computers, especially LLMs, because we're going to feed this to ChatGPT, the date needs to be in a specific way in order for it to effectively work with and parse the dates. So same thing with the end. I'm just going to copy this whole thing, bring this down, and I'm going to swap this one with the end value and hit save. Now, the next thing we need is an array or an aggregator. So what we need to look for is an array aggregator. Perfect. The source is going to come from the Google Calendar search events. And we also need the start and the end that we defined in this set multiple variables. And then we also need the bundle order position. So ensure that you have these three checked. Let's go ahead and hit save. Now, the next step is for us to use a GPT module. We're going to use the generate completion. And let's change the model to the 4.1 mini. This one right here. And let's just change max tokens to something like 300. And then messages, we're going to add a system, and we're also going to add a user. Now, the text content is going to be this prompt. Again, it will be available in the build resources and the link down in the description, so you can just copy and paste this. And just to walk you through it quickly, so you're a scheduling engine. Your job is to compute available appointment slots from a list of calendar events. So essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be supplying all the events that we have in our calendar, and its task is to look at those events and calculate the open slots around those events so that we can return that back to the user. Okay. And then the second prompt that we need is this. This is where it actually computes the availability based off of the events that we get back from the Google Calendar. So we need to just remap this to the correct variables. So this is going to be preferred dates right here. And then right here, we got to change this one too, again, to preferred dates. And then change this. We want this array. And then let's also turn on advanced settings. And let's change this to be a JSON object. And then let's save. And then now what we need is a webhook response back to Vapi. So just to not have to build it again from scratch, I'm just going to clone this. I'm going to drag this right here. Let's go in and let's just change this. So here we have to take out the double quotes and we just want to map in result. Now result is going to be a JSON object. Vapi will be able to parse through that and see the open slots around the events that we have currently on the calendar. So now let's just save this. Now the next step is to configure the book appointment path. So let's start that. We're going to go to Google Calendar and we're going to create an event. So let's change this to be in detail. Calendar ID, choose your correct calendar ID. Mine's Good Looking Plumbing, and the event name. So I'm just going to put something like new booking And then we'll plug in the customer's first name, add a space, customer's last name, and then we'll also append the service address. Okay, and then no. And then for start date, we will use the appointment date. And then lastly, let's just figure the duration. So it's going to be 00:45. So the appointment durations are going to be 45 minutes. So let's go ahead and hit save. Now, the next thing is to send out an email confirmation to the customer of their appointment. So let's use a Gmail module. We're going to send an email. So for the two, let's add a recipient. So let's map in the email that we're getting from the variables. So customer email. And then the subject, I'm just going to put in book point, make confirmation. And then the body content. So this is where we actually add the email body. I'm just going to add my email body here. Now you can play with this. You can even do more and add in HTML so that you can add a design to the email. But just to keep this simple, I just have this basic template. Let me just remap all the values in correctly. So we have customer first name right here. Service type, let's add that right. Service type right here. Let's add in the appointment date right here. And then remap service address. Let's just scroll through this. Okay, looks good. And then now we also have to send back another webhook response. So I'm just going to clone this. Then I'm just going to edit the result value and then put in something like your appointment. Okay, perfect. Let's double check. Yep. All right, so now let's configure our reschedule path. So the module that we're going to use is going to be search events. Choose your calendar ID. And the start value is going to be appointment date. And the end date, we're going to use add minutes function. For the first parameter, we're going to supply appointment date. And we're going to add 45 minutes because that's going to be the duration of appointments. We're going to turn on single events. And we're also going to query by customer's first name and last name. And then last thing, we want to start time ascend. So that's how we want to order it. And we're going to limit one because we don't want multiple appointments to pop up. They should only have one. So I'm going to hit save. Now, once we have searched for the booking, now we can update that specific booking. So we're going to go back. We're going to click on Google Calendar and we want to update an event. So let's toggle this off so that we can just choose the correct calendar ID. Go look in plumbing. Now the event ID is going to come from here. So let's actually just save this real quick. Let's close this and let's run this module only. And let's just put in a date. And then we want to add in the event ID here. Now, event name, we're just going to put rescheduled booking. And then we'll also add in the customer first name space last name. And then the start date will be rescheduled date. And for the end date, again, we'll use the add minutes function. This will be rescheduled date. and then we'll add 45 minutes. And again, here, 45 minutes, no, and let's hit save. Now, the next step is to send out an email confirmation that their appointment has been successfully rescheduled. So again, we'll use a Gmail module. Let me just clone this, drag this here. Change this to reschedule. And then let me just update my email content. So for the email content, I have this. Let's go ahead and remap everything. Service type. New date is going to be rescheduled date, but it needs to be formatted. So let's go ahead and just use this format date. Reschedule date. And we don't need this one. And also, yeah, that's fine. We'll just delete that. Matter of fact, we probably just don't even need this either. Okay. And this needs to be modified. We don't have a variable for this, but that's fine. You get the idea of how we can send out these email confirmations. And go ahead and just make sure everything else is set correctly. And it is. So let's hit save. And then now the last thing is we want to set up the cancel appointment path. The same thing. Let's use a search events. Calendar ID. Start date is going to be appointment date. Yes. We want to query by the user's first name, space, last name, start time ascending, limit by 1. Let's hit save. And then once we find that event, we can get that event ID, and then now we can delete the event. So, but let's close this first. Let's run this module, punch in a date. John. Okay, 0, because I don't have any appointments under him. So now I can go back into here. Let me actually redo this. And we want to map in the event ID that we're getting from the previous module. So event ID, and then let's hit save. And then again, we need a cancellation email notification here. Let me update this. And save. Okay, so before we do the testing, let's just do a quick recap on to ensure that we have everything correctly. Okay, so first things first is we want to make sure that we set up all the routes correctly. So I'm just going to do this again just so you guys can see exactly how to do it, just in case if I missed that step, because I might have. So let me just save this and get everything redone. So I'm going to remove this. Let's remove this. Remove this one. Okay. So again, the AI is going to be making different tool calls, and the way we want to set up the filter is by the name of the tool that's being called. So we're going to add a filter. So we're going to click on tool calls and function, and we're going to click on this name. Now, if we're going to go down this path, if the tool is this, So if the tool is get date time, and then we're going to go down this path. Okay, so hit save. And then now let's do the check availability path. Same thing. Tool calls, function, name. If the tool is check availability, and then we're going to go down this path. Let's hit save. Same thing for book appointment. Copy this. Tool calls, function, and name. And then reschedule appointment. As you can see, same thing. If the name of the function is reschedule appointment, we'll go down this path. And then lastly, the cancel appointment. Tool calls, function, name. Copy this. Boom, and let's hit save. And let's just go ahead and check, because sometimes it's very easy to not save, or Make just somehow doesn't have it there. Happens plenty of times, so let's just make sure we are good to go. Okay. Perfect. Now, another thing is, I noticed I had a small typo. So in the webhook responses, ensure that you have tool call. Before I only had one L. Make sure that you don't misspell this. It's tool call ID. And then just ensure that you have all the webhook responses spelled out correctly for tool call ID. Tool call ID. And then let's also duplicate this. So we're going to turn our webhook response back to Vapi once a reschedule has been successful. So same thing right here. Your appointment has been successfully rescheduled. And then let's clone this one again. This one, your appointment has been canceled. Let's go ahead and save. And let's save this. Now, another thing is in the tools, I believe before we set it up to be preferred date, but in Vapi, the tool for preferred date, which is going to be for check availability, we're working with preferred date time. So I changed this, ensure that you swap it from preferred date to preferred date time. So everything aligns with the parameter that is set up on Vapi. And because we changed that, ensure that we go through the rest of the flow. Make sure that here the start date is preferred date time, not preferred date. If you see preferred date and it's like an outline purple box, that means the variable doesn't exist. So we want to make sure that it's preferred date time. Same thing for here, preferred date time. Ensure you save it. And then in the GPT completion, let's also change in the user prompt, make it preferred date time. So it's not preferred date. Okay, so just ensure that your box is colored in. And then another thing that we want to do is let's change max tokens to 500. Previously, we set it to 200, but it's going to result in incomplete generations, right? So it won't be, we want the JSON to be full. If we make the max tokens too short, sometimes it can truncate and not output the full JSON that was supposed to be outputted. Okay, so ensure that you change that to 500, and then also change temperature to 0. We don't want it getting creative. We want it to be predictable and consistent. So once we have that, let's go ahead and hit save. Now let's finally test our AI agent to book, reschedule, and cancel to make sure that the whole flow is working. All right, so I'm going to go back to the assistant, and then I also have my calendar open. Now I don't have any bookings, so I'm going to request for some time for tomorrow. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Make. I'm going to have Make open on the right. I'm going to have Vapi open on the left just to make this testing productive. So I want to make sure that this is saved. Also ensure that your scenario is active. So you want to make sure this is toggled. Okay, and then we want to be here under the diagram. We want to leave on the screen so that we can watch the automations work in real time. All right, so now let me call up my assistant and let's see how it engages with the tools.
Thank you for calling Good Look in Plumbing. This is Sarah. How can I help you today?
Hi, Sarah. My toilet is cracked and I need a technician to come by and take a look at it.
I'm sorry to hear about your cracked toilet. We can definitely help you with that. What day would you like a technician to come by, and do you prefer morning or afternoon?
How about tomorrow morning?
We have 3 open slots tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m., or 10 a.m. Which time works best for you?
Let's do tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Great, I'll reserve tomorrow at 10 a.m. for you. To finish booking, may I have your full name? Please spell it out for me.
Yeah, my first name is Quincy, Quincy, and my last name is McCants, Mccants.
Thank you, Quincy McCants. What is the best phone number for the technician to reach you? Please read it digit by digit.
Yeah, it's 123-456-1234.
Thank you. Just to confirm, your phone number is 123-456-1234. Is that correct? Next, may I have your email address? Please spell it out for me.
Yes, my email is QUINCYMCCANTS@gmail.com.
Thank you, Quincy. Now, may I have the full service address where our technician should visit? Please include the zip code and read the numbers clearly.
Yes, the address is 123 Main Street, Scottsdale, Arizona, 850012.
Thank you, Quincy. So, your address is 123 Main Street, Scottsdale, Arizona, 850012. Is that correct? Could you please give me a brief description of the plumbing issue? And is this for a repair, maintenance, install, emergency, or consultation? Also, are you a new or existing customer with us?
It's just for a repair for my toilet, and I'm a new customer.
One moment. You're all set, Quincy. Your appointment is confirmed for tomorrow, February 27th at 10 a.m. at 123 Main Street, Scottsdale, Arizona, 85012. You'll receive an email confirmation shortly. Is there anything else I can help you with today?
Okay, so we'll end it there. Okay, so now let's try to call up the AI again and have it reschedule my appointment that I just booked right here.
Thank you for calling Good Lookin' Plumbing. This is Sarah. How can I help you today?
Hi, Sarah. I have an appointment and I want to reschedule it.
I can help you reschedule your appointment. What day and time would you like to move it to, morning or afternoon?
I want to move it to tomorrow at 11 a.m.
We have 3 open slots tomorrow, 11 a.m., 11:30 a.m., or noon. Which time works best for you?
11 a.m., please.
Great. I'll reschedule your appointment for tomorrow at 11 a.m. Can I have your first and last name? And please spell them out for me. This helps me find your original appointment.
Yes, my name is Quincy, QUINCYMCCANTS.
Thank you, Quincy. To complete your reschedule, can you please tell me the original date and time of your appointment?
Yeah, it was for tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Your appointment has been successfully rescheduled to tomorrow at 11 a.m. You'll receive an email confirmation shortly. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Thank you for calling Good Lookin' Plumbing.
Actually, can I cancel that appointment?
Of course, Quincy. I can cancel your appointment for you. Just to confirm, you want to cancel the appointment for tomorrow at 11 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
Your appointment for tomorrow at 11 a.m. has been canceled. You'll receive an email confirmation shortly. Is there any?
Okay, so the last thing that we need to set up for our AI agent is going to be the last two tools, which is going to be the log lead and log emergency. So I have a split screen open again. I have a sheets set up, and I have two sheets. I have a new leads, which has these columns. So I have a timestamp, customer name, phone, email, address, zip, customer type, service type, urgency, lead temperature, problem summary, and also call notes. And then for emergencies, I have the columns timestamp, customer name, phone, address, zip, urgency, problem description. And yeah, so we already have all those variables mapped in or set up in our tools. So let's just set up the filter for these two last scenario paths. So right now I have it currently disabled. I'm going to just enable this path. And then again, we're going to set up a condition. If the tool that's being called is log lead, and we're going to go into tool calls, function, name. And let's do the same thing for this path. Let me enable this, click on this, copy this log emergency. If the tool name is called a log emergency, and then we're going to go down this path. So function, and then go into name. Now what we want to do is we're going to add our sheets. So we need to connect this one to our new lead sheet. So type in sheet, oops, not cheats, but sheet. Okay. Click on Google Sheets, and then we're going to add a row. And then here we want to just make the connection to Google Sheets. So mine is going to be under good looking plumbing. So right here, and sheet name, this is going to be new leads. And then here we just want to start mapping in all the data properties that we're working with so we can log leads to this sheet, which will act as our CRM. So timestamp is going to be, we're going to use the now, but also we want to use the format date. Let's drag this now into the first parameter, or let's just put it in right here. Delete this, and then it's going to be month, day, year, and then, so we also have the time format clean, okay? And then customer name, this is going to be customer first name, customer last name, phone, it's going to be this, email is going to be customer email, address is going to be address. We can leave zip because that'll be in the address. We have customer type, which will be here, service type, urgency, lead temperature, problem, we'll put problem description here, and that will be suffice. So let's go ahead and hit save. And then same thing for this log emergency. So let's choose Google Sheets. Let's also add a row. Let's connect this to our emergency sheet. So mine is in good looking again. Sheet name is emergencies. And then timestamp again. We're going to use format date. Here we want now. Customer name, very similar to how we did new leads. So it's going to be customer first name, customer last name, phone, address. Address again will leave blank, urgency, problem description, and that is all set. Now the last thing I want to do is how can we actually connect our AI to a phone number? So let's do that real quick. So back in Vapi, we want to navigate to phone numbers, and we could just get a free Vapi number. So we're going to create a new number, and we're going to do free Vapi number, and then you can type in the area code. I'm just going to do something like 808. Okay, nothing there. Let's do 231. Okay, and then it's going to activate the phone number. We just got to wait 2 minutes. But here we can give it a name. So we can do like Sarah's number or whatever you want. And then we want to assign the phone number to an assistant. So we're going to assign it to Sarah. And then that should be good for that setting to have it set for that inbound. And then we're going to hit save. And there you go. You built an AI and connected it to a number. Now, that's the full breakdown on how I'd build a working AI receptionist in 2026, from prompt design to Vapi setup to automations and testing. Now, the biggest mistake I see people make is overcomplicating this. You don't need a massive tech stack. You need a simple solution that works reliably. Now, from here, you can expand this into CRM integrations, lead follow ups, production infrastructure, or full client deployments. If you're interested in the exact prompt and build resources that I use in this video, feel free to access the link down below in the description. You can grab the resources there. If you're serious about building AI receptionists and offering this as a service in 2026, be sure to subscribe. I'll be dropping more videos on this topic weekly. Thanks for watching. My name is Quincy, and I'll see you next time. Peace.